Most supplements for osteoporosis don't work. Not a little, but literally nothing. Yet companies keep adding fancy ingredients to make their labels look impressive. Today, I'll show you which ingredients are useless, which ones actually help, and how to stop wasting money on supplements that do nothing. In more detail, here's what you can expect to learn. One, I'll bust two common supplement myths that still persist. Then, I'll discuss three reasons why I really like supplements, even though I don't sell any. After that, we'll discuss 7 reasons why ineffective and unproven ingredients are often included in bone supplements, and of course, the promised content. 4 supplements commonly recommended for osteoporosis, even though they don't work. Before we jump in, who am I? My name is Igor. I'm the author of the Amazon best-selling book, Osteoporosis Reversible Secrets. As well, I run an online personal training company that specializes in osteoporosis reversal. And just so you don't think I'm some random guy on the internet with an opinion, I'm actually a personal trainer who works with clients one-on-one and sees the effects of the methods on the results. Like this client, here's Darlene. At the age of 46, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. She went through chemotherapy, radiation, and eventually estrogen blockers. And as expected, but not desired, her bone density went down for 2 years in a row. She was on the verge of osteoporosis and yet was able to turn that around with some of the methods that we'll talk about here and then talk about in my other videos. Here is Laura, who had severe osteoporosis as well as a strong family history of it, and yet she was able to improve her bone density by between 4 and 8%, depending on the site, in 1 year without medications. And here is Anne. Anne is a 60-year-old accountant in this picture, and she was already exercising, eating a vegan diet, which she thought was healthy, and yet still developed osteoporosis to her huge surprise, but not ours. And we were able to turn around her osteoporosis and improve her bone density in a matter of just 4 months and going. So let's get to the supplements that are highly overrated and don't work for osteoporosis. The biggest, most common one by far is calcium. In the very report by the National Institutes of Health, they state the results showed that calcium supplementation alone had no effect on risk of hip fracture. Interesting. Here's another big study titled A Meta-Analysis of Milk Intake and Fracture Risk, Low Utility for Case Finding. In this study, the researchers compared people who drank a lot of milk and people who drank no milk, and there was no difference to their fractures. Now, I know that it's been ingrained in us that women over 50 should be getting 1,200 milligrams of calcium per day, but that is not true. Why? I have an entire PowerPoint, an entire video about this, which covers topics like how much calcium do you really need if 1,200 milligrams is not the right amount? Why doesn't calcium decrease fracture risk, even though it slightly improves bone density? It's a very interesting juxtaposition. So I will have that linked on your screen right now. As well, vitamin D, the second most common supplement for osteoporosis, doesn't work. Here's one study titled Vitamin D Supplementation to Prevent Osteoporosis is Not Warranted, study concludes. The results were that very little evidence of an overall benefit of vitamin D supplementation on bone density. Here's a different meta-analysis, a very large one, titled Effects of Vitamin D Supplements on Bone Mineral Density. The results were use of vitamin D for osteoporosis prevention in community-dwelling adults without specific risk factors for vitamin D deficiency seems to be inappropriate. However, not all research says the same thing. To contrast that, here is one study titled Resolution of Vitamin D Insufficiency in Osteopenic Patients Results in Rapid Recovery of Bone Mineral Density. In this study, they recruited people who had low vitamin D levels and osteopenia. In these folks, supplementation with vitamin D to increase blood levels from low to normal improved their bone density between 4 and 5%, depending on the site. So why the difference between the studies that show no improvements in bone density versus the ones that did? Very simple. Vitamin D is only beneficial to supplement if you're deficient in it. To go from low to normal is very beneficial. To stay at normal is, or to go excessive, to go too high is also not beneficial. So again, the body doesn't like too little of anything or too much of anything. It likes just the right amount. Same thing with vitamin D. And I wouldn't just assume, like a lot of people do, that, oh, I live in a northern climate, therefore I must be vitamin D deficient. Lots of people in northern climates have normal vitamin D levels. You don't know unless you get tested. You might have low vitamin D if you supplement with it. You might have normal vitamin D if you supplement with it. You might have normal vitamin D if it's just in your multivitamin. You might have normal vitamin D if even if you're in a cold climate, but you go away to a sunny place during the winters, you might be normal in vitamin D. So don't assume you're low, get tested. Another common supplement recommended for osteoporosis that doesn't work is magnesium. Here's a study titled Low serum magnesium levels are associated with increased risk of fractures, a long-term perspective cohort study. They found that people with low blood levels of magnesium had a higher fracture risk. Here's another study titled Short-Term Oral Magnesium Supplementation Suppresses Bone Turnover in Postmenopausal Osteoporotic Women. The results were that magnesium supplements improve the bone loss markers, which in theory should improve bone mineral density, but that part wasn't studied and should, most importantly, improve fracture risk. So basically, it's a bunch of unknowns. So yes, it improves bone loss markers. However, the question of does that lead to better bone density and lower fractures, that is not supported by evidence. However, I take all of this research to mean that just like vitamin D, magnesium only works when you are correcting magnesium deficiency. Just like vitamin D, don't assume you're deficient, get tested for it. Okay, that's the ultimate lesson. The test is called just what you see on the screen, RBC magnesium. Okay, next, zinc. There are lots of studies correlating zinc with bone density. However, very few that give zinc supplements to people with osteoporosis. As you know, because you're a viewer of my videos, that correlation does not equal causation. Two things can be associated or correlated to each other, and yet one doesn't cause the other. Do you know what else is correlated to bone density? Protein. And it so happens to be that a lot of high protein foods also are high in zinc. So to really study the effects of dietary zinc without the confounding effects of protein, you'd have to find foods that are high in zinc but low in protein. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, most foods that are high in zinc are also high in protein. As far as I know, the only food that is high in zinc but low in protein is pumpkin seeds. Here's another study on zinc titled, Is Zinc an Important Trace Element on Bone-Related Diseases and Complications? So basically, the results are very, very mixed. Some studies show that it improves bone density in one area, like the lower back, but lowers it in another, like the hip. And some studies just say that the bone density is unchanged. My guess is this. Same as vitamin D and magnesium, zinc only works if you're deficient. The result, just like magnesium, just like vitamin D is, get tested. Don't assume that you're deficient in zinc for whatever reason. Assume that you don't know, which is what the case is, unless you get tested. There are a bunch of other supplements that are unknowns, not disproven, but unknown. For example, boron, as well as silicon or silica, are often included in bone density supplements for osteoporosis, claiming that they improve bone density. However, there is not a single shred of evidence saying that they do that. So if that's the case, why are ineffective and unproven ingredients often included in supplements? There are 7 specific reasons. One, a supplement with 15 ingredients looks more impressive than one with 3 ingredients, even if 12 of those ingredients do nothing. And manufacturers know that the person buying it does not have a background in physiology, pathology, etc., to actually look it up. So they're just going to assume more ingredients means better. Um, Second of all, lots of studies are done in mice and rats. So if you have a pet mouse with osteoporosis, maybe taking an unproven supplement for humans might work for rats or mice, but it might not work in humans. In science, a very, very basic principle is that you can only generalize to the population studied. You can generalize from mice to other mice, but you can't generalize from mice to people. Another one is there are differences between what you see in the short term in a matter of hours or days versus what you see in the long term. However, if long-term results like bone density and more importantly fractures weren't studied, you can't make conclusions from the short term to the long term. You can say maybe this is what's going to happen, but you don't know for sure. A fourth reason is that, piggybacking on the third reason, is that there is a plausible bone gain mechanism, but no data specifically on bone density and again, most importantly, fractures. Some research is done just in isolated petri dishes. And again, that just looks at mechanisms, and that's interesting, but not conclusive. Petri dishes don't have bones. A sixth reason is that the amount matters. In other words, Maybe a study shows that you need 50 grams of a certain supplement to make a dent. However, a certain supplement only has 1 gram, in which case, of course, you're not going to get the same effect. And lastly, the magnitude of the effect matters. Yet it's not just a binary yes, no, a supplement increases bone density or no, it doesn't increase bone density. It's a real question of how much. The goal is not just bone density improvement. The goal beyond that is lower fractures. Maybe the bone density improvement is so small as to not make any difference to fractures. And that's what we're really after, not just bone density, but fracture risk reduction. So these are the 4 supplements that don't work, as well as reasons why they are included in bone health supplements, despite evidence to the contrary or the absence of evidence. However, there are 3 supplements that actually help with osteoporosis. I have a video exactly about that, which is on your screen right now. If you're curious about it, check it out. I have another video, more broadly speaking, called the Stronger Bones Checklist: 6 steps to improve bone density naturally. This video, however, is not available on YouTube. I've made it special only for the viewers of this video. If you go to this link on your screen right now or in the description below.